Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
Clint Eastwood is finally cracking at 95 amperes, decades-long period of silence, and his revelations are shocking. Waves from the positive, ugly, and the bad to millions of dollars. Baby Eastwood used grit to build his empire idea and subdued strength. But behind the however, not everyone was worthy of his admiration. One documentary made fun of his values. Firestarter attempted to establish a reputation for by making fun of Clint's code. Clint didn't reply or laugh. He simply made ascertain that it won't occur again, and hates calling names. Come along as we unveil the Clint Eastwood's 7 actors never Michael Moore was forgiven. Michael Moore Simplisac as Clint Eastwood, who is a renowned American producer and director of motion pictures. But they have had an unexpected feud since 2005. Clint doesn't like Michael since various factors, such as personal beliefs, boundaries, divergent opinions. Anything started in the National Board of Exam and the awards dinner where Clint gave a speech on Michael's propensity to appear unexpectedly with a film crew. He then remarked with his usual expression of no nonsense that if Michael visited his house uninvited, he would murder him in accordance with the visitors there. He threatened to kill them. "I'll shoot you if you mean it." Making me anxious. There was a burst of laughing in room 10. Michael remembers the incident years later, internet stating, "Clint, 10 years ago declared that he will murder me if I ever arrive for an interview with my camera." As he framed the tension endured, Clint's jest fits into a trend of conservative celebrities, animositized as Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck Evans. If Clint subsequently stated that he never made grave threats against anyone and made jokes about 2015's sin, which isn't a bad notion. Michael and others observed the essential idea is that Clint feels intimidated by Michael's persistent and combative documentary style. One more explanation for why Clint has been the disparities are damning of Michael. In their narrative principles and Michael uses documentaries as a social critique weapon. Hence in his he addresses the power struggle and official head-in stories, frequently with satirical conscious flair. In his signature movie Fahrenheit 9/11, for example, took on George W. Bush, the war in Iraq, and charged the Bush administration with terrible and dishonest treatment of the war on. However, perceives storytelling as a more reverent kind of art, particularly regarding military service. Having learned to appreciate quiet sacrifice from Clint Winu through Korea and Vietnam, believes that serving in the military is sacred. Narrating a war story isn't a boot, but it's about paying tribute to encounter. So when Michael's movie was released and depicted the US military leaders who were exploitative or manipulative, in actuality, Clint wasn't pleased with it. The incident "I'll kill you" occurred following Michael's publication of Fahrenheit 9/11. Sand denounced the Bush administration and the $1 million baby that Clint had was being honored. It produced a tense atmosphere that exists between them. Although not all well-known people are Michael Moore Clint Eastwood's least favorite actor due to significant disparities. In narrating Clint Eastwood, Spike Lee has a lovely major conflict with Spike Lee, particularly due to their disparate beliefs that began in 2006 when Clint Flags of Our Fathers were issued as a component of an examination of World War II into films. The movie Battle of Uema concentrated on the BID flag was raised by American soldiers won Weema and the tale of valor throughout the conflict. But Spike Lee, the well-known actor, producers, directors, and writers who typically investors racial relations in his films, said that Clint omitted the African Americans' contributions, Marines who served and lost their lives in the battle in 2008. Spike was openly chastised Clint for leaving out black troops from Clint Flag of Our Fathers. Eastwood produced 2 UMA-related movies that ran for over 4 hours in total, and not a single black actor appeared on this screen. But Clint answered the well-known tale is Flag of Our Fathers. Flag rising image. However, they failed to taught it. If I go to place and there are African Armenian actors there, this guy is insane. I mean, it's not true. A man like him ought to stop. Clint doubled down on his face. Declaration that reads, "I'm playing it the way I read it from a historical perspective. And that's the way it is when I work on a film, and 90% I use 90% black, since it's black like birds, people." Regardless of the rationale, Spike Lee was not going to give up, said in response. "Clint sounds like an irate elderly man," he replied. "The man isn't it, my dad, and we're not traveling either a plantation." He even promised to unite black veterans to challenge Clinton the record of history and stated, "I potentially bring together men of African American descent who we want him to tell me about the fight at Aoima." These men didn't even exist. Controversy extended beyond a single movie since it addressed a more profound, enduring problem in the way black history is portrayed in Hollywood as the publicity increased. Steven Spielberg, who was the film's producer, and also someone who knows Spike, intervened to calm things down after Spike's private discussions with their reporters that the conflict had been resolved, and he forwarded a copy to Clint for private review. At St. Anna, Miracle never made a movie together, but neither has made it public, commended the other since. But were you aware of that Leonardo is likewise despised by Clint Eastwood? The actor DiCaprio is adored by Leonardo DiCaprio. Everyone ever since the release of J. Edgar and Clint Eastwood did not collaborate with Leonardo DiCaprio, which makes him among the 2 actors he despises work together. On J. Edgar together, but the film wasn't a huge success, and received many positive reviews, but the subpar performance could be the result of the tight environment and crew. One thing we know for certain is that Leonardo Clint did not share the same opinion. Clint is renowned for his quick, simple shots and proceed with the directing approach by using few takes and following his gut. However, Leonardo is a renowned technique performer who emphasizes complex character investigation using their various hardly unexpected that artistic process that they had trouble cooperating. Armie Hammer claims that starred in the film Leonardo requested a retake following a scene's filming, but Clint declined and ended the matter, resulting in the environment between them to even worse. Some claim that Clint walked off set and actually disregarded him there. Was once believed by the army to be continuing to practice because the script was Clint was still holding it, but he was already seeing the camera to capture and judged initial attempt to reassure the army that he would remove the script from the shot. Judi Dench, who co-starred in the film, defended Clint's strategy, but also admitted the conflict between them when discussing. She said to Clint, "He was really casual. You just had one chance." Because of the quick, Clint could keep up with the output speed, fulfill his vision, although it was difficult. Leonardo's introspective process that resulted in stress. She added, Leo DiCaprio and he performed a sequence in which I was sharing a bed with a few documents and items in front of me, or anything else. So he sat here and everything was talking, including us. Discussed commonplace topics, after which I asked, will we do this scene? And Leo said he has completed the task. That's all. Judi didn't do anything while we were seated. Feel uneasy with Clint's method of stating that it was wonderful to direct complete on schedule, but Leonardo wasn't really happy in the interim. Whereas Leonardo had, Clint was commended for his effectiveness, and he never left the set wanting. He continued to say, more, even though they both said this, haven't collaborated since their creative energies are evident didn't sync, particularly because Clint frequentizes actors with whom he has a connection, but another someone with whom Clint is at odds, Seth Rogan, who contrasted Clint's movie to Nazi propaganda. Hence it makes sense that her despisses him. Seth Rogan. The dispute between Clint Eastwood and Seth Rogan began in January 2015. Along with Seth Rogan, the American Sniper reminds me of of the film that's being screened in This is the Inglourious Basterds' third act that essentially made reference to the mythical Tarantino's Nazi propaganda flick. American Sniper's film meant that like Nazi propaganda. This is a very inflammatory analogy that sparked indignation. The response was quick and intense, with numerous conservative voices and veterans such as Kid Rock, Sarah Palin, and Dean Cain expressed regret, with some stating that Seth made fun of the American heroes he had to make it clear that he didn't intend to only when comparing it politically. He was reminded of a movie by the Sniper elements. In a movie he shared his respect for the American Sniper. Clint is renowned for showing respect for veterans. His admiration for warriors. So he cautiously approached the American Sniper intending to depict all of their sacrifice and suffering with honor. So for Clint, the movie was an homage, and any recommendations comparing it to Nazi imagery seemed like a mocking disregard for veterans. Clint's sacrifices and experiences have never applied in public, but according to insiders, Seth's remark made an impression. Clint's response was neither verbal but rather no public action or inaction appreciation, but no invitations to work together. Seth hasn't been recognized since Silligely made it apparent to co-workers the name Seth was not welcome on any upcoming initiatives in typical Eastwood style. The reprimand was silent but unchangeable, according to insider accounts. Clint was extremely offended by the analogic, particularly because it was made public. Hestel stated that he is not interested in working with Seth periodically, although he never brought up the event even resulted in an internet public discussion over the movie and how it depicted the Iraq War, and a few detractors claimed that a glorified war, in spite of all American Sniper's debate, turned into a significant box office achievement. Similar to many others Clint Eastwood's Eastwood films, there have been criticisms of artistic direction by numerous people, and as a result, had dislikes Gene Hackman and Gene Hackman. When Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman when they first collaborated, nobody thought they would ultimately have reciprocal genes that were disliked by one another. Ware first proposed the position of Sheriff Bill Daggett, but he turned it down since the reality did not sit well with his family that he consistently followed violent rules. Then Clint persuaded him that the movie was a revisionist who opposed violence. Western. This made Gene think twice, and he eventually took home his second Oscar, seeking the position, even if the outcome wasn't the set. They had a lot of disagreements. Clint claims that the shoot went smoothly and faultless. He informed interviewers he frequently skipped Gene's rehearsals because his character was flawless, straight from the box in every location. He actually didn't need to take any action. Distinct. Gene was recognized for his difficult manner and unyielding approach in it. Wasn't particularly a big deal to act their outburst while filming, but based on Clint would be pushed forward by insider Gene, blocking and performance. As a result of imaginative friction, Clint was a big fan of Gene's performance, after which he stated Gene is the best actor in terms of intensity and there is never a false note and instinctive. Additionally, Gene disclosed that Clint had a loathing faith in him, enabling him to pledge to a figure. But there were numerous tension throughout the film as a result of Clint's overbearing, and Gene was constantly. This created a rift by challenging him while the picture was being made. Even though the film was a hit following Unforgiven, Gene and Clint never worked together again. This is sufficient evidence that he doesn't wish to continue collaborating with him, particularly because he had regular collaborations with other players, such as Ivan with Morgan Freeman. The film was quite successful, taking home 4 Oscars including the director and Best Picture, was a pivotal point in Clint's artistic development. Also following Gene's death in early 2025, Clint also gave him a sincere homage, referring to him as a close friend who would die really missed. Clint and Gene's the relationship ended well, which is comparable to the extent of our disagreement with John Wayne. John Wayne is referred to as the Western hero of Hollywood through the heat-watched Westerns in the 1940s and 1960s. As accounts of pioneers who conquered heroism in the face of adversity. In 1973, with Clint's release of High, his second directing project is Planes Drifter. Endeavor that is ethically supernatural legic tale that included vicious violence. But John's answer was a harsh letter written by hand that states that wasn't the main focus of the West. The Americans who settled there aren't they? This nation. He also chastised Clint for misrepresenting the spirit of the pioneer and departing from conventional Western ideals. Nevertheless, Clint desired to bridge the space between them. He offered John the screenplay for the Hostels leading part with him, but John declined to play the part twice in one very noteworthy case. He even whispered as the screenplay went into the sea. This ** piece again. Jay had some disdain for Clint. According to sources, he didn't like Clint. Actor Clint Eastwood later showed that his hatred for John had lessened. As previously and had thought about the film, I discovered that there are two, he remarked, several age groups, and Wayne wouldn't recognize what I was doing in the High. Planes Drifter was intended to be a story rather than in the settlement of the West. In his opinion, the source of John's critique was a generational gap as a result of his attachment to the past rather than rethinking it like Clint did later. They became softer in their conversations, and Clint once paid John a visit. When filming The Shootist, they even shook hands even though they were present. John passed away, and there was no cooperation. Disappearing without ever collaborating with Clint. Wayne's denial of Clint's aggressive Western revisionism, topped by his letter and Clint's rejection. Cooperation reveals deeper distinctions between heroics and myth and realism, between sentimentality and the fight is constantly reinvention. Between them ceased, and their possessions not quite a fight. But it was mostly due to their disparities in convictions and narrative techniques. Tom Hanks of another performer that Clint Eastwood only collaborated with due to their disagreements. It's Tom Hanks collaborated with Clint for the first time ever on Sully, a well-regarded biopic about the Chesley Suntelberger. The pilot is still the only time they ever worked together. Tom Hanks is referred to as the everyman of Hollywood. Additionally, he explained Clint's directing. He claimed to have a powerful and touristic manner, treats his performers as though they were horses. Boot in reference to Clint's silent approval, and I'm done with that repetitive multiplicity. The same, what's stated by publications and insiders. Which is that Tom resembled Clint. The manner was quite threatening. His notoriety makes it clear that the two of their acting techniques differed, and directing, which led to considerable conflict while the movie was being filmed. It also to Clint not having any negative. Clint's affections for Tom Hanks' Ingle takes little rehearsal and quick shooting is a characteristic of his rough manner, which is in contrast to the highly cooperative multiple take methods that actors such as Hanks might wield. Rather, even if Hanks didn't resist that dynamic, even though Tom Hanks was under a lot of strain because Clint's severe autocratic manner still held him in high regard. Due to his experience in the sector, he considered Clint to be an understanding director. Actors, and he was always able to let Clint acknowledge that his talent shone in response. Tom Hanks' effectiveness and their relationship wasn't professional, condemned in public, and there was no significant dispute, but they were never successful together. Outside of Sully, it's clear that Tom Hanks was unable to manage Clint's quick-fire one-take technique and his Clint Eastwood's scary actions. Clint's strategy for handling disagreement at age 95. Eastwood lists the 7 performers he has, and everybody is listening, regarding his method of handling conflict. What somehow is frequently referred to as the quiet eraser, possessing a low threshold for absurdity and dislikes shouting, drama, and misunderstanding on scene. He would rather maintain an atmosphere when every performer is content and is free from tension when crossed. Whether by Clint disdain or creative dissenters and start a public dispute, he just takes that individual out of his orbit. This silent but purposeful distance is his kind of punishment. No tweets nor interviews. Clint was a quiet eraser, raised before to the heyday of Hollywood, and consequently, he emerged rough and unvarnished. According to his biographer, Patrick McGilligan thought Eastwood remained the same person, more steadfast in his beliefs throughout time. Continued when he was irritated or offended, doesn't snap. He just remembers his nature serene, firm, and unyielding. Clint's respect code is derived from both critics' instincts and history. Said that he was treated harshly on set, However, he has continued to be creative equilibrians such as those involving cinematographers N. Green and Bruce Surtis, for decades specifically by Provident Gisipol, and reliability regarding his preferred directing style. He likewise used a single take with little rehearsal, likes to watch unpolished performances and genuineness of emotion, when colleagues insist on multiple takes or depart from the script, which push Paul is silently an excel. In Eastwood's interview, actor David Thompson famously claimed that he is frightening and shocking when an actor has very little need for your affection and doesn't so much softer if he still desires your. Despite the fact that his demeanor has attracted some competitors and departs from him hating certain actors, he still has garnered a great deal of prestige and respect. In from Leonardo to Michael Moore in Hollywood, Clint Eastwood, played by DiCaprio, has a variety of disputes, whether as a result of his artistic methods or his disposition. Which do you consider to be the most startling conflict? Please leave a comment. Thank you. Thank you for viewing, and we'll talk to you soon. Duration.